Derek Moneyberg here. You're about to download some key money-making philosophies in your head with this next lesson. And once you do, go to moneyberg.com and let's accelerate your success even faster. It's really an amazing modern luxury that, your ancestors died, your ancestors did hard things and died. So you could fucking have the luxury to have the option to be a fucking soft fucking piece of shit instead of actually doing something that matters, instead of doing something that, I don't know, you'd respect yourself for, or somebody in the future might actually respect you for. And I don't know, I don't know, when was there, I left, I was talking to one of my buddies last night. He's an attorney here in New York. He had a fancy firm and kind of a fancy partner there and so on. And we were just hanging out last night, but it reminded me of a conversation that we had. We were at Oktoberfest last year, 2018. We were leaving Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany. And we were talking about, if you had like a time machine, it only works one time. You get to go back in time, only once. You don't get to come forward. You get to go back in history to any damn time or place that you wanted to in history, but you're gonna live the rest of your life from there forward. And we were just having a chat about this, and I said 2009, by the way. I thought that of all times to go back, that there were fantastic arbitrage opportunities in history, but you got fucking plagues and all sorts of awful things happen, and various wars and purges and plagues and whatnot that Inquisition and so on, Crusades, and numerous stories like this from different cultures all around the world. And he commented, he's like, even the medical advancement of the last 10 years, that even to go back 10 years and relive that time, that you're taking a substantial risk to your life, that antibiotics are more advanced, other medical things are more advanced, and to even go back 10 years in time to that 2000, I would go back in February 2009, and I know the bottom of the market was the first week of March 2009, but in case there's some jet lag or some shit, I want to be well rested that first week of March. So I thought that, and he says, even that would be a risk. Even that would be a considerable risk that, medical knowledge, doubles quicker and quicker and quicker. It used to be every 20 years. Now it's every 6 or 8 months. And so there'd be a substantial risk to even do that you may well go back and, be a multi-billionaire and also die earlier because you missed out on that other decade of medical and, technological advancement. And when you think about that, like, you wouldn't go back to industrial age Britain. You wouldn't go back to, then Britain was the superpower of the universe at this time, Britain was becoming the superpower of the universe. Just a bit over 100 years ago, they controlled 20% of all the land on Earth. That's why we're speaking fucking English right now. That's why we can go travel all around the world and, many, many, many places get by speaking English. Even that's a great luxury that, all my friends in Europe, they speak, everybody speaks 3 languages. A lot of people speak 4 or 5 languages. Very, very, very common. Very, very common. And what an amazing luxury we have to live right now. How many of you are smart enough to know that you would have died? And it might not be true for everybody, so it's not a smart, dumb question, but how many of you had an experience that you very likely would have died without antibiotics or some other, some modern luxury you just don't even think about too much? I probably would have. Like a simple thing like that, like a fucking, azithromycin, like a Z-Pak, A simple thing like that, like I may well have died without that. So, and even when I said the ability to like go travel, I don't know, 65 or 66 countries, could you do that? Like a normal person is living better than kings from a couple hundred years ago. A normal person in a first world country has a better life than the most powerful people in history if you rewind a couple hundred years ago or before then. Henry VIII, would he die at 50 something, 53, 55, something like that? And he had all kinds of conflicts he had to deal with. He's, arguably the most powerful person in the world at that time, or at least for some moments. You could argue the Pope, you could argue, Spain or France or whatnot. But he's right up there, And you wouldn't trade places with Henry, that's about 500 years ago. You wouldn't trade places with Henry. You wouldn't trade places with, even back to World War II, That's 70 years, 75 years. So you wouldn't trade places with the most powerful people in the world even 75 years ago. So, what would happen in, 1,000 years ago, if you traveled to all these different places around the world, like, you'd be killed. How did things work out for James Cook? James Cook was a famous explorer. You know, he's killed with a spear near Hawaii, traveled around the world in a ship. He's kind of an amazing character. He's got quite a story. And, you know, somebody, a tribal guy gets him with a spear in Hawaii because there's a conflict that some of his men might have messed with the tribe's canoe. And he was trying to defuse the conflict. And now that's a snorkeling spot. If you go to the big island in Hawaii, you go snorkel there, and there's a monument where the guy died. And probably nobody knows who the fuck he is. You know, 10% of the room even knows who the fuck I'm talking about. And you'd be like, oh, snorkeling, is there a colorful fish? So, you know, in a time where we get to live and be concerned about, like, is there a colorful fish? It's, you know, most of what you people think is a problem. And I don't confuse you with the people out there. I know this is a self-selected group of people, above average intelligence, far above average ambition. I get that. But when you have one of these, you know, what you think is a problem, you know, just laugh at yourself a bit. You're living at probably the best time in human history. I don't know who you would trade places with in history. You know, I think we touched on that deep enough. Who would you trade places with in history that's doing so much better, has so much more opportunity than you? You touch your phone and a car appears and picks you up. You touch your phone, you know, and they bring you food. You know, I press a couple buttons, I get on a jet, I fly anywhere in the world I want to. I don't have to get hit with a spear. Maybe there's a couple countries that I avoid strategically. Probably a few that I strategically avoid so I don't get hit with that spear. But you know, you can go to much of the world, you know, the corners of the world. Pretty safe. Got your US passport, you know, they're pretty welcoming just about everywhere. How many of you guys went out of your way, had a hard time to get a US passport or visa or whatnot? How many of you gone through trouble doing that? Yeah. How cool is your US passport compared to, I mean, you might not love paying the taxes compared to some other countries, but I don't necessarily mind the taxes either. I don't know, it's made me think a lot recently of, you know, just this concept of gratitude, which is, you know, maybe a funny topic in your mind for someone like me to be talking about, but a lot of the things that you perceive to have as, you know, is a problem in your life. And, you know, if you made a list of like 20 things you were happy about, you know, the problem would just go away. If you just made a list of like 20 things you were grateful for, it doesn't even have to be shit that you did. Is that you were born in a great time in history. You were born in a place of abundant opportunity. The internet, you know, if people say shit to me today, imagine people say, you know, some people from Eastern Europe, some people from other countries, you know, oh, you know, I got this problem. There's the fucking internet, dumbass. How many of you are already making money because of the internet? We're all in this room because of the internet. Yeah. The others are making money off the internet, you just don't know it. It's a second order effect or something. You know, I don't know. Does anybody in here not use the internet? Has that not benefited your life? It's like a silly question, you know? So, some of you were old enough when you were a child, you didn't have a cell phone. And, you know, people today, you're born with a cell phone in your hand, and you press a couple buttons, you get whatever you want. Maybe you just, you know, instead of thinking about problems, what are the opportunities that you have? What are the opportunities that are right in front of you you're not even taking advantage of? And I would just, you know, I think a summary of that is to be, you know, what's a pragmatic thing that you could do to help yourself with that is, you know, if you made a list of 20 things that you were grateful for, whatever they might be for you, you know, they can be simple things. Is it nice, like, you know, I'm happy that I'm not crippled, you know? I'm happy that my immune system's rather hardy. I'm happy I was born with a rather high IQ. Happy I was born in America. I don't know. I feel like there's so much opportunity. You got anything to complain about, really? No. I don't feel like I got anything to complain about. I went to Auschwitz a couple times, and you know, I don't mean to be dramatic about it, but if just rather objectively, is, you know, some pretty terrible things happened there. That if you were in that sort of environment, or you read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, people know that book. It's like, what do you got to complain about? The guy spent 3.5 years locked up in really tormenting situation, lost his whole family, and even though he had a PhD in psychology and is a rather smart and industrious person, he really had to rethink his whole life, kind of to avoid being a crazy person. He came up with a small branch of psychology called logotherapy, or essentially meaning that you have to assign meaning to things in your life to perceive them as valuable, or sometimes to have a will to survive, literally to have a will to survive, not some fancy modern day term, but quite literally to have the will to carry on another day, another hour. You have to assign meanings to things, and it was heartbreaking for him to, that he survived some of those circumstances, sometimes by chance, and sometimes, through, having a superior brain and social relationships that he created or whatnot. But he said, every day you got to tell yourself, I'm going to see my family again. I'm going to see my family. I'm going to see my family. But when you come home and, on one hand you're happy you're liberated, and on the other hand, oh, my whole family is dead. Well, now I got to assign a new meaning to my life, I suppose, And I don't know, I just think that the problems that most of us have, and you're all here because you had problems. I had plenty of problems. We could all cry together about all our problems. People don't come see me because everything's nice in their life. They come to see me because they're frustrated. Things aren't going as well as they'd like. They feel like shit about it. They're tired of feeling like shit about it. A third of you are actually going to do something about it. 2/3 of you are spectators, and I wish you'd leave immediately. And the 2/3 of you that aren't serious about taking action, I just wish you'd leave immediately. I wish I knew who was who. You guys have to let me know. You'll indicate to me who you are. I wish I knew who was who, because I could just have a more intimate talk with the 1/3 of you that are actually going to go do something. I don't know. I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm not smart enough to sort that out immediately. You guys do that for me. But we had nothing to complain about. Think about 20 things you're happy about. Make a list about that. And it's almost mutually exclusive to have a thought like that, to have a series of thoughts of gratitude, and then go out to a nightclub, or go to a business meeting, or go to an interview for a job, or whatever circumstance you might have, go negotiate or something. You just wouldn't be in a depressed or anxious mood, would you? Would it lower your goddamn anxiety, or your depression, or anger, or any other minor negative emotion that you might have, if you just thought, what are 20 things I really have to be grateful for? I'm not dying in a concentration camp. That's pretty dope. And if you could laugh about that, it's because it's so detached from your reality. That's not so long ago that's a real thing. There's genocides in other parts of the world right now. Some of you are aware of that. Some of you are, blissfully ignorant in the short term. But again, unappreciative because you don't know how good you've got it. So, I don't know. Well, a lot of these inner problems people have are Derek, I got to solve this problem, or I got to do the thing, or get the thing, or make somebody do something for me. You really head in the wrong direction with that thought. I need to make somebody do something for me. How do I trick the system or manipulate somebody? Or no, just be grateful for what you have, and then go do more. And a couple people that I enjoy quoting quite a lot. Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, he says that the best way to get what you want in life is to deserve it. How would the world go about, how would the world be so insane to go around highly rewarding a bunch of undeserved people? Or, Brian Tracy talks about, your success in life will be directly proportional to the size of the obstacles that you're able to overcome. Now, the people that I'd like to meet here, when they hear something like that, say, oh, my success would be directly proportional to the size of the obstacles that I'm able to overcome. That should be an exhilarating thought. Do some of you have an exhilarating thought when I say something like that? That should be an exhilarating thought. Say, oh, it means I have the ability to choose the sort of life I want. He also says that your reward for overcoming your current problems will be, more difficult problems. Your reward for overcoming whatever your current problems are is not a life of ultimate leisure. You're just going to have a higher quality set of problems than the idiots who are too stupid or too lazy to overcome the problems that you did. You don't get a life of ultimate leisure. You just, you try to avoid suffering, and then you die at the end. You try to avoid suffering, and at the end you all die. It's statistically improbable that you will be the world's first immortal. As much as you'd like it to be true, as much as I might like it to be true, And if you think of some of the implications of that, you might not even like it to be true if you understood what would have to come along with it. But very improbable that you're the world's first immortal. So, well, what do you want to do with the time that you have? Make the best of the time that you have. Do something about it. Do something with your life. I feel sick when I see this soft jellyfish personality that's pervasive in these first world countries. That if you behaved that way in other countries, you'd starve. You behave that way in other countries, there's nobody's gonna take care of your fucking punk ass. You'd starve. You'd die in a slum somewhere, as you should. As you should. I grew up in a circumstance that there's a lot of violence where I lived. There's a lot of, my father was in prison for most of my childhood. My uncle was in prison for most of my childhood. And, by age 10, I was in charge of the household, And I don't know, I've seen my friends when, to your question, when the people that I associated with at that time in my life, my 6 close friends, 3 of them are dead now, 2 by violence, 1 because of drugs. So 3 of them are dead. One of them did 10 years in prison and then 30 more. Just in the middle of that. One of them's doing life in federal prison. He'll never come home until his body will reach room temperature before he leaves. So, the 6th one, he's crippled. He was drunk and high at work. He did get a job. The other 6 didn't. And if I kept hanging out with those same people, what type of outcomes would I have? It's such a lie or such a willful ignorance or stupidity to think that you would have a different outcome. If you hang out with a lot of middle-class people, you can have middle-class outcomes. You hang out with a bunch of ghetto people or other people, regardless of people with poverty mindsets. If you're hanging out with people of any background or a poverty mindset, you're going to be poor. You're going to be poor and dumb, because those type of people will make fun of you if you try to get an education. When I got tired of that sort of lifestyle, and when I looked around me and I seen all my friends, at that time, even as a teenager, some of my friends were in juvenile homes in and out for their whole childhood. They're going to foster care. They're going to adult prisons and shit. And I thought, my senior year in high school, I was in jail instead of in high school. And I thought, maybe I'll go get my GED exam. And I did that. And I scored quite well. I got a little scholarship for 2 little classes for free at my community college. And those same guys that, if we were involved in some sort of, mischievous behavior, I'll say, they were very supportive of that. But those same guys, when I say, hey man, come take your GED test with me, they made fun of me for that. When I told them I was actually going to go to college, they made fun of me for that. When I wanted to be an honor student, and I just made sure that I got I had a few B's. I never had a C. Never had a C in 9 years in college. I had a few B's. They made fun of me for that. When I asked them to, instead of engaging in street-type behavior, when I said, hey, come start this real estate business with me, come work on this other project with me, they made fun of me for that. Well, they're all dead or locked up. I don't know, I just came from a different background than some of these people, that I see some of this soft shit, and it's not even a human to me. It's not even something that I acknowledge or respect as a man in many cases. And I don't say it with any animosity, that's just how I feel about some people. And, if you hang out with, man, bro, if you start hanging out with fucking 6 dope fiends, you're gonna turn into a dope fiend this year. That's just how it is. A human is a permeable membrane. You're going to be highly influenced by the people that you're around. You're going to be influenced by the books that you read. You're going to be influenced if you don't read. You're going to be influenced by, first thing I do when I get into a Lyft or Uber, I say, turn that music off, please. Turn that radio off. I turn that radio off. That's very important. I used to tell them they had an important business thing to do, but that's less relatable to that type of a person. So now I've just started telling them, there's been a recent death in my family. I can't listen to that right now. I hope you understand. So, the first thing I do is tell them to turn that off. If I'm not inside of a nightclub, I don't want to hear music. The music is not allowed to be played in my home. The girlfriend would know that, is that there's no music. If I wanted noise, it would be an audio book, there'd be a documentary, there'd be an audio book, or I just like the place to be rather quiet. So I say that word precisely. Music is not allowed. Random noise on the television is not allowed in my home. I say that quite precisely because it sounds, for some people, it feels like I'm taking the fun away or something. It's like, no, who's having more fun, motherfucker? When I go home to a fucking dope-ass penthouse so high in the sky that sometimes I fucking open my bedroom door and I look out and I can't fucking see because there's clouds. Literally, not a bit of a joke. When I go over to the window and I look far down upon the fucking peasantry, and sometimes I can't see because I can see the blue sky, but the clouds are down there, and I can't even see the damn ground. I don't know who's having more fun. Those guys, the cool kids from my childhood. Well, some of them ain't having no fun at all. This video is brought to you by Moneyberg.com. I want you to go to Moneyberg.com right now to see where you can meet me live when I come to a city near you. I want you to be part of our audience. I want you to be part of our elite success programs. I want you to be part of the fun. Most importantly, I want you to ensure your success and your financial independence working with me while we travel around the world and help people live their dreams. Go to Moneyberg.com. Success is closer than you think. It's waiting for you there.